Hey guys, what's up? It's Millies and Millie Books here, and I just wanted to film a quick intro for this Q&A video. I went to the Epic Reads signing tour thing that came to Naperville, Illinois, and I got to meet 3 authors, Jasmine Warga, Cynthia and Victoria Aveyard, and I'm just going to show you the books that I got signed. Unearthly by Cynthia Hand, The Last Time We Say Goodbye by Cynthia Hand, My Heart and Other Black Holes by Jasmine Warga, and Red Queen by Victoria Aveyard. Now I will cut to the Q&A.
Okay, so the first thing we're going to start out with, Cynthia has already got a trilogy under her belt. In case you don't know, it's the Unearthly trilogy. So what advice do you have to Victoria and Jasmine, who are both debuts?
I feel like I've been spouting that for the last 48 hours. I think overall I would say enjoy the process. Sometimes you can get so anxious about all of the little details and caught up in the little details, and I think it's good to just like remember to enjoy it. So yeah, that's my advice.
Okay, now we're going to start with my fave question, because, I don't know, I came up with it, so it's dear to my heart. If you could have your book turned into anything, so not just a movie, if it was like a TV show or a miniseries, graphic novel, random interpretive dance that they do in flash mobs, anything, what would you want it to be and why?
I'm going to say movie, first off, because I come from a screenwriting background, so that's always been a dream. But I guess a video game would also be pretty cool, one of those virtual reality things where you put the helmet on your head. That would be awesome. You're like shooting lightning around, you'd have a great time.
It's hard for me to, I would say a play for The Last Time We Say Goodbye, because there's so much talking, and plays are really about speech. And Unearthly's been in development for television for years, so and I really am behind that idea. So
this may be really weird, but I also am kind of weird. But I might like a concept album where like different bands or musicians who I love like write songs inspired by the book, because I'm like really a huge music freak, and so I think that'd be really cool.
I'm just going to scoot to the side so then we'll go the opposite way.
Oh, no.
Yay! That was fun. Okay, so how did the title for this book come about? Was it something that you had in your head from the beginning? Like, you were like, ooh, title, and then story? Or were you like, I can't think of a title, and then it was a collaborative process between sort of everyone?
Well, the initial title for this book was pretty like overwrought and really like, I think like too, serious, and when I was about to send the book out to agents, I kind of was thinking that it was the wrong title for the book, in the way that I thought the gazelle wouldn't like the name of the story that I had. And so I was sitting in my study and I was talking with my husband. I was like, I don't think I have the right title, and we were going back and forth and just playing with things, and then I jokingly kind of said, well, what about My Heart and Other Black Holes, kind of using that construction that you see in a lot of like YA titles with and other. And then it clicked, and I was like, it just like felt right. So it kind of came sort of randomly from just like chatting that night.
I usually have an easier time naming my children than my books. But and I told my editor after the Unearthly series that it was going to be a while before I did a one-word title again, because that's hard. But this one, in the early drafting stages, I was writing these journal entries in the book that were the first and the last. And so that, and I knew that it was coming, that the book was heading toward The Last Time They Say Goodbye. And so I think that just naturally fell out. It was the easiest titling experience I've had.
I originally saved the first few chapters just as the word silver, and I knew that wasn't going to stick as the title because it was terrible. So I, very early on, Red Queen popped in my head, and because of, the color of blood and the whole royalty aspect, but I also was thinking about the Red Queen evolutionary theory, which gets its name from Alice in Wonderland, the whole, you can run as fast as you can here, but you always stay in the same place. The evolutionary theory states that everything is evolving at such a high speed that you can't even see it. And to think that you're stagnant is completely incorrect, because if something were to stagnate, it would die off immediately. And that kind of links back into what's going on in the book.
So how did the idea for these stories originally come about? Because they're all very specific ideas that, like Red Queen, we haven't really seen much like it before. My Heart and Other Black Holes, I don't know how many books you could go up to be and like, this book is about 2 kids who are forming a suicide pact. Like, it's pretty much the only one I know. So, and then the last time we say goodbye is something that happens so soon after a family member or friend's suicide, which typically it's a couple years afterwards, or something that's happened far in the past. It's so direct. So how did this idea sort of come about, and how did you know that you wanted to do it the way you did it?
I was coming to the end of my senior year of my film degree, which is really scary to think that you're graduating with a film degree in a recession. So I was interning at Fox, and they had me looking at the Amazon self-published list, looking for the next Wool or 50 Shades of Grey. And the good stuff was all represented and had already been snapped up and had some heat behind it. And then some of the bad stuff had all been represented and had some heat behind it. So that was my first, like, what the hell, I can do that too. And then I started thinking, like, but wait, I've always wanted to write a novel, and at this point I've completed several screenplays. Like, maybe I can actually do this now. Maybe I've matured enough as a writer. So I was brainstorming, and I came up with the idea of a teenage girl who can control lightning. And I wrote a book and a world and characters to service that image and bring that to life. And I think a lot of the fear of graduating into this adult world that was very, very scary, and a lot of the political climate of the country currently kind of seeped into that as well.
For me, I had just finished the Unearthly series, and they were asking me what I was going to do next, and I had a lot of different things on my plate. I have lots of ideas, which is great. But the one that always kind of floated to the top and then I pushed back down because I was scared to write that book was The Last Time We Say Goodbye. I just had it I'd had the image of this girl looking into the mirror and thinking that she sees the ghost of her brother behind her, and that would not leave me. It kept bubbling up. And so I finally was like, yeah, you really should just, suck it up and write that book. And so that's and I decided to write it about directly after it happens, because I'm interested in writing about not just grief, but numbness, which is sort of like grief's uglier, meaner cousin in some ways. And so I was interested in writing about that because I don't think people know how to deal with numbness, like the way that people stop feeling after losing someone, in the same way that they know how to react to grief. So that was part of the reason why I thought it was important to write so shortly after that had happened.
And sort of to piggyback off of that, I wrote this book in my own sort of period of numbness. Azel's voice popped into my head a few days after I kind of unexpectedly lost a very, very close friend of mine. And it's not like I ever remember having a really distinct moment where I was like, oh my gosh, I'm writing a novel about, a teenage suicide pact, but rather I heard Azel's voice and she sort of led me the whole way. And there were moments where I was like, are we really doing this? Is this what's happening? And it made me a little bit uncomfortable, but I think that I kind of tried to channel that. The reason that it was making me uncomfortable kind of propelled me to want to write the book more and to listen to her and kind of walk all the way with her. So definitely that voice sort of shaped and guided the structure and the plot idea came. For me, it always first comes from character. So.
Look, I'm back on the side. So do you want to talk a little bit about your writing process and sort of like how you get into this space where you're like, I'm going to be this character today instead of just me. So how do you write?
Well, I have one of the messiest writing processes of my friends that I know. They think it's like ridiculous because I don't outline, and I just really play around. Like if I hear the voice, I write it out and I try to like feel my way around to be like, okay, who does this voice belong to? What are they asking? And so that ends up being where I write like tons and tons of words that are never really usable in a novel because I'm sort of searching and discovering. And then eventually it will become hopefully novel shaped. Sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes I realize I've totally hit a wall and I have to restart. But for me, it's always about like character and voice, because I think for me, writing is more an exercise in curiosity than it is in imagination. And so I write to ask questions, and I'm interested in finding characters who are asking questions that interest me that I don't know the answer to, and I don't think that necessarily the books I write know the answer to, but I'm interested in sort of like exploring that through them.
Each book that I've written has been kind of a different process, and some of it's just like the situation of it, you know, how hectic are things, how much time do I have, you know, that sort of thing. But this book was really hard. It took me longer than any of my other books I've taken, and part of that was because I was very emotional about it. There were whole like weeks where I cried every day at my keyboard writing this book, and so like that was hard. And I think the strategy for me, when I go into writing a book, I have to make a strategy for myself about, you know, how am I going to get from point A to point B here. And so my strategy for this book was to find ways to like release that energy after I was done writing and sort of rest through the night and then be ready to go back to that place the next day, you know. So it was me finding ways to relax was like the best way that I was prepared to write that book. So
my process, I try to kind of treat it like a job as much as a dream as this is. I keep store hours, so I start writing by about 10 a.m. in the morning, and I go until 5-ish, until someone comes home, and then I'm like, people, oh my God, I've been alone all day, talk to me. My roommates call me the puppy. And my parents, yeah. But I work. I don't try to hit a word count every day. It's just, am I satisfied with what work I did? Do I feel okay watching some reality TV tonight, or am I gonna feel guilty about it? So just, I have lunch. I sometimes do a walk around the neighborhood and come back to writing and just work all day and try to stay off Twitter, which you guys know I can't do.
So if you could pick a character from your book, or I suppose you can also pick one from the Unearthly trilogy if you'd like, that you would like to hang out with for a day, who do you think it would be, and what would you do? Would you go to Starbucks? Would you go like just chill and watch things and cry? I mean, whatever you want to do.
I don't know if I'd want to hang out with anybody. I think I would probably try and take Mare to a spa. Like, I don't like being touched, so I wouldn't enjoy it, which makes me think she maybe wouldn't enjoy it either. But she needs to relax a little bit, so maybe just, you know, PJs on a nice couch with some television to watch for her.
Wow, that's hard. In this book, I think it would be Seth. There's like a side character that he's one of those characters that's unpredictable, and he's always trying to get Lexi to ride his motorcycle, and so that would be what I'd do. I'd ride motorcycle with Seth.
It's not an innuendo.
No, it isn't. It's actually not a romantic thing at all. With Unearthly, that's hard, because I love all of the characters so much. Not with Christian, because he could read my mind, right? But yeah, any of the others.
This is so cheesy, but it's honest. It's the first thing that popped into my head, so I'm gonna go with it. And is that probably like Mike, who's the little brother in the book, because he was like very much inspired by how I feel about my own little brother, and how like that love kind of like grounded me like during my teenage years, and how I still feel. And so I think like I feel like of any of my characters, that's the most like someone who is like sort of based off of like someone I know. So I feel like that's what I would have to pick. And sometimes I wish I could go back to that age when he was like that small and hang out with him again when he like still thought I was cool. So
Okay, and then before I turn it over to audience questions, be ready. I'm gonna call on you. What's next for you?
Oh goodness. Okay, so this is getting back to my editor agent. Like book 2 is going like really well, but the honest answer is I'm working on something right now that's like kind of loosely inspired by like almost famous meets like fangirl. Like it's about music and kind of like that indie rock music scene, and how like finding that kind of as a teenager was like really like, it's probably hyperbolic to say, but kind of life-saving for me. And so it's sort of about like community and those like kind of alternative music scenes. And it has a character who's like kind of a fictionalized version of a pretty famous like indie rock music star. So
now this is a long list for me. I had to talk about this for a while. Well, the most immediate thing that's coming is a book called My Lady Jane that I wrote with Brody Ashton and Jody Meadows, and we're just about to get our edit letter for our first round of revisions from the publisher for that. And that'll be out in 2016, the summer sometime, and that is, I like, my short description of Lady Jane is that it's a teenage Princess Bride. The longer description is it's the story of the tragedy of Lady Jane Grey, who in English history was Queen of England for 9 days and then got her head chopped off, as a comedy. And each of us, Brody and Jody and I, each wrote a specific character's point of view, and so it sort of rotates between these three teenage characters, Edward, the King of England, which is who I write, and Jane, who's written by Jody, and Gifford, who is Jane's unfortunate husband, who's written by Brody. So that's been great. It was really great to work on that after I wrote this. So it was just what I needed, and it has been so much fun. On my own, I've been writing, I have a contemporary in the works, but it's probably another couple of years out. It's going to take me a while to write that. And I am writing a teenage version of A Christmas Carol that hopefully will be out not this Christmas, but next Christmas. So, and then I'm writing a nonfiction book about how to write your first novel. It's almost done and ready to go out. And I've been flirting with a novella that I, back when Unearthly was going to be 4 books, there was a novella that went between the 3rd book and the 4th book, but then it kind of got squashed into 3 books. And so that half-written novella has sort of been sitting there. It's from Christian's point of view. And I've been flirting with finishing that and seeing if Harper wants to put it out. So yeah. Hopefully. So that's a lot. That makes me feel tired.
I feel tired just listening to that.
Right? What am I thinking?
Tired and inadequate. Book 2 in Red Queen series is about to go to copy edits once I get home. You're all right. Yeah, it's about to go to copy edits. This coming next week is going to be my last week with it before I turn it in. So I hope everything's where it needs to be. And then book 3 is in the planning stages right now. We've got some novellas coming down the pipe, I believe, so keep your eyes out for those. And I also have screenplays I'm working on, and there's one that's at Sony, and we're thinking it might be out 2016 Christmas, maybe? But who knows with those people. Don't have a director, but you have a release date. Great. But who knows with me. I've got another fantasy series that I'm sort of working on in the back burner. But so far I'm just along for the ride with you guys.
Okay, questions. Go for it.
What Harry Potter house are you in, and what would you put your characters in?
That's a good one.
I'm in Slytherin. I know that.
Oh, yeah.
Did you guys all just agree with me? I'm flattered. Thank you. I think telling you what houses they're in is a little bit of a spoiler, so I don't know if I should do that if everybody's read or not. They're telling me not to. But I think Gryffindors are kind of dumb, so. They're brash.
You set me up for that. Characters, I would say my characters are Ravenclaws in this book. They're definitely head people, right? I've always, like, I think people would probably sort me into Ravenclaw too, but I always want to be a Gryffindor. I want bravery. So.
Mara's a Gryffindor. She's just dumb about it.
Yeah, I'm also, I think, definitely probably a Ravenclaw, and I think Azelle would certainly be a Ravenclaw, and then, I don't know about Roman, maybe like a Muggle, but you know, like I guess like maybe like a Hufflepuff with some like buried Gryffindor tendencies. I don't know, that's hard. I'd have to think about it. But yeah, I mean, I'm the same way. I always wanted to think that I'd be a Gryffindor, but I'm like the biggest free cat ever, so certainly not.
Another question?
Hey, we have candy. I'll give you
Oh, yeah,
candy if you have some candy.
I would bring candy. The stakes have been raised.
Candy.
See? Candy.
Do you guys have any say when it came to your book covers?
Here, wait, let's give her more than one piece because that's...
I feel neglected.
I used to throw them, but that didn't work out well.
I'm right here. Hello.
My book went through like a huge saga of covers. I think the design team like couldn't figure out what to do with the book because it's sort of like a strange book.
You gave me a
it's strange
pink
book, and then it's like obviously like about a serious issue, but I think it handles it in sort of like an irreverent way. It's supposed to kind of be one of these books that's about like this issue for readers who may this is like what was maybe the 5th cover that I saw. Like it was they I think they couldn't decide kind of what direction to go in, and so they were trying to find that balance between like that irreverent, quirky black humor strand that they found in the book while balancing it with like that gravity and seriousness. And the final cover has really grown on me, and that the designer, she actually embroidered that design by hand, and then, you know, they've raised the stitching on it so it has a really nice texture, and I think captures the texture of the book. So the foreign covers though have been crazy. Like I just got that time when it's like 2 people full on making out, and so it's pretty steamy, but I guess that's what works in Italy. So
yeah, the cover for this one was really smooth. They always ask me for my input, and I am so type A that I usually send them like a photo bucket of like images that I associate with the book, other covers that I like, but it's usually like 25 pictures, you know, and then I'm like, do what you will. None of the pictures were posted on a mirror. That didn't even occur to me. And when you have the cover design, you kind of want it to be about your book. Covers are advertisements to get people to pick up the book, and you're lucky if they are related to the book or like really symbolize what's going on in the book. And the first time I saw this cover, it sent chills down my spine because in the story, Lex's brother writes his suicide note on a Post-it that he puts on his bedroom mirror. And I had not even thought about that as part of the cover, but the design team came across with that, and I really loved it. I loved it from the first moment I saw it. So
I have to sneeze, so I apologize if I sneeze in the middle of it. I love this cover. It's fantastic. It's selling more books than I ever could. I got really, really lucky. They were super open to my opinions and what I wanted. I told them I wanted a simple book. I wanted a crown on the cover, make it upside down. And I sent them, you know, the Game of Thrones covers and said, this is what I like. And they delivered, basically. They added the blood, and I was like, it's not going to look too vampire-y? And they're like, hell no, it'll be fine. And it was fine. But it's like sparkly and embossed and lovely, and it's really cool. And the inside, the end papers are very cool. Is this flapped? Oopsie.
Yeah, those are
End papers. Got very, very lucky.
The book lovers in the audience just went,
And everyone else is like, okay.
Another question? Go for it.
I might sound like a dum-dum, but this question is directed at Victoria. Is this Earth, or is this some place where you just made up?
I'm trying to decide how I should answer this. Do people really want to know? Like,
yeah.
it is Earth. That's all. It's very
okay,
clear.
so it's post-apocalypse.
Yes,
okay.
yes. Harbor Bay is Boston.
Alright. I couldn't figure it out. I was like,
Well, we couldn't put a map in it because it was a spoiler.
oh.
I know.
Will you put one in the second one?
There's one coming, yeah.
Oh, yay!
I love maps, so this is a big deal for me too.
Who's your favorite author?
Mine have a lot of acronyms, so J.R.R. Tolkien, George R.R. Martin, and J.K. Rowling. Those are my favorites. So I have to get an acronym soon.
gosh, I have so many, it's kind of hard. And I know I'm like friends with so many, so it's like hard to like separate that out anymore. So people who are not my friends. Holly Black, I have major writerly jealousy. Anyone that and I think writerly jealousy is a good thing. Like, it inspires you to work harder, and you know, like, I don't mean that in any mean-spirited way. So I am horribly writerly jealous of Holly Black and Robin Lefevre's, and gosh, just tons and tons of different genres. I loved Kirsten White's last book, but she's my friend, but that was a really great book.
So Francesca Leah Block's Sweetie Bat was like a book that I read in high school and really like meant the world to me, and I think is part of the reason I write YA today. So I have to say her, and then like Jandy Nelson is just like my favorite. Her book The Sky Is Everywhere, I like really turn to in some dark moments. And I'll Give You the Sun is obviously brilliant. That needs no saying. And I also love Margaret Atwood on the adult side, and Gino Diaz, and I read like a lot of poetry too, so like Adrienne Rich and Sylvia Plath and Anne Sexton. I feel like their poems like really inspire me. So,
what's your favorite part about working with Harper?
We're earning our keep now. Yeah.
Oh, definitely my editor. Alessandra Balzer is my editor, and I loved her from our first phone call when she first was like interested in the manuscript, and I feel like she really understood what I wanted to do with the book. Though anything that you find wrong with the book is my fault and not hers, but I do think she really helped me to improve it, and so I love her. So she's definitely my favorite part of the process within Harper.
I was going to say the same thing. I think you develop such a close relationship with your editor, and they are just this amazing part of your process that you couldn't do without. And so I have loved working with Erica Sussman, who's my editor at Harper. But the other part of that is that I love the way that they encourage us to form friendships among each other, you know, and I've made amazing friendships with other Harper authors just because Harper's very open to like throwing people together and like encouraging relationships between their authors and support between their authors, and they can be that way because they're so big, and I think that's part of what's great about working at Harper is group tours and friendships with each other. So
I've never been at another publisher, so but I can't imagine one being better than Harper. Just editors across the board, everyone in my imprint, everyone at HarperCollins has been fantastic. I think a lot of you guys probably know Epic Reads. They're amazing. The work they do for us and for books and just being really happy about books, even if they're not Harper books, is really cool and really inspiring. And they do so much to connect us to you guys, and I really appreciate that from them.
Okay, if there's any book that you wish you could have written, what would it be?
If I wrote it, it wouldn't be as good, but A Song of Ice and Fire, that's yeah. And of course, we all wish we wrote Harry Potter. Who doesn't?
This is torture. No, there's so many. Okay, so to go with Holly Black, The Coldest Girl in Cold Town. I love that book. I was very jealous of that book. And this is like maybe a tried answer, but I really loved A Fault in Our Stars when I read it too, and like I felt like it was almost a flawlessly executed book, and so like I was like, dang, okay. I wish I wrote that. So
I have to go back to Jandy Nelson. I wish that I could write in the way that she does, or write anything. Either of her books, I'd take either of them happily. So it'd probably it's the first thing that came to mind.
Let's do two more. Go, your hand came up really quickly.
Is it hard to get a publisher to want to take your book?
I guess it's like a long process. I think that finding an agent is like the bigger loop to jump through, because you're in this just like unknown pile of people just trying to get their attention, like from sending them an email. And so for me, once I got my agent, everything escalated very, very quickly because she knew like which editors would be interested in the book, and she placed it with them. And then we were like, I got like very lucky that part went very smoothly for me. So I think that the trickier thing was finding an agent, just because of like how difficult it is to get any of their attention because of how inundated they are with query letters. And so for those of you who may be like aspiring writers, I would just say, like, if I can do it, you can definitely do it. And it's a numbers game. It's really just like believing in yourself and continuing to send out your work. Because the way I used to look at it is like every no response or every no, like you only need one yes. And so you're getting closer each time, and just like believing that moment will come. And I think it gets so much easier once you have an agent, because you have this advocate who believes in you.
Yeah, I don't have much to add to that. I think you're absolutely right. I think it's way, way harder to get an agent than to get published, because the agent that's their job and they're good at it usually. So, I mean, not to say that if you get an agent that guarantees you a sale on your book, but I think your odds greatly increase, you know, like, so yeah, I think that's hard. We just did school visits today, and we talked about, one of the things we talked about were the odds of getting published. And the odds of getting published when you submit a book are about 100 to 1, which is actually not too bad if you think about like it in comparison to other things. But even that number, I think, is not as, like, I feel like your odds are much better if you just continue to persevere. I think that's just everyone who tries it, and a lot of people give up like in the early parts of it, and I think that your odds are much better than 100 to 1, you know, like in getting a book published if you just keep writing and keep persevering. And I think the other number that always makes me think, and about publishing is that usually, I mean, we're sort of exceptions to this, I think, but like usually writers will write 3 or 4 novels before they get one published. My friend Jody wrote 17 novels before she had one published. So I feel like work for the writing and publishing will come, right? Like just keep writing and the publishing will come.
To put that in perspective, we submitted to 10 publishers, and the first 5 rejected Red Queen, and number 6 was a preempt, and they gave you 2 hours to like accept an offer or not. So it's a very strange situation in that I was like, oh my God, this is never getting published. Whoa, it's suddenly happening. And I don't know what the other 4 would have said. So it could have been just 1 out of 10 for me.
Okay, last one. Go for it.
How different are your books from when you submitted them, and then now they're done, they're out, and they're published? What do the editors do, and what are some of the biggest differences?
Got to my agent was about 160,000 words, so it was 100 and something page longer than this was. And she immediately was like, nope. And I got, yeah, it was very big bone. I got super lucky because I also submitted it wrong. I did everything wrong. I submitted it in a PDF so she couldn't get a word count, so she just read it. And then after, she's like, that felt a little heavy in the middle. And then she ran it through a word count. She's like, crap. Yeah, so she said to me, we need to cut this down, and I did, and then she signed me. And then we got to my editor, and she was like, we need to cut this down. And I got another 10, I think. So this is a lot lighter than the original draft was. But because I was able to cut that much, that means the stuff I cut was not necessary. And I cut like a terrible Rue knockoff in this book. She's gone. She's never coming back.
With this one, I think I went through a major structural change with this one, which is always so much fun. When I wrote the book originally, Lex had 3 tasks, and she did them in order. So like, she had this task to give this letter that her brother had left to his ex-girlfriend, and then she had this task of that involved a picture that was missing from a frame for her father, and then she had this task of saving this boy that goes to her school. And I wrote it in that order, and then I was really having trouble, and my editor was like, could see this clearly in the pivoting between those moments. So my editor was like, what you should do is restructure it so that all 3 of these are happening at the same time. yeah, that was kind of a headache, but it was really, really wise advice, right? And so it worked out that way. And Unearthly was like that too, where it was like, we did a little bit of a restructure in terms of like timing and pacing. I think originally in Unearthly it was like Clara arrived in Wyoming in the summer, and then the big event that happens in Unearthly didn't happen until the next summer. And my editor was like, that's too long. And I had like homecoming dance and like the Powder Puff game and some other stuff that happened in the fall. And she's like, have Clara move in January. So then I had to pretty much rewrite every description and everything for Clara's move. But again, it was like a really wise piece of editing advice, and it made the book stronger and better.
Yeah, I got lucky that I had, like, I think comparatively a fairly light editing experience with this book, which I'm certain book 2 is, I'm going to get like a 30-page single-spaced edit letter for it, the like shape it's in right now. But most of the stuff was like increasing the immediacy of things. So my editor had me like switch up the timeline of certain like family events in Azel's life, and she also cut a lot of lines that at first I didn't want to be cut because I thought they were kind of like the darkest lines, but now I see where she was coming from, that they were like almost too much or too glib, and so she kind of went through and I think tried to take a lighter hand with the manuscript. And so but it was more like looking at characters and figuring out how to kind of enhance them. So it was like more like smaller level edit stuff, where I'm predicting with book 2 I'm going to have a lot of like larger frame things to do, but that's where I guess the magic happens, the fun. So.
I scared you with the 20 pages.
Okay, can we give our author the big hand, please?